Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I beg to Dr. Mira and our fellow classmates. We are from presenting Group 1 here to present the final case study regarding Mukimin Adalal, that also known as deliverance from error. These are the overview of our presentation today. We'll be presenting on biography of Imam Ghazali, that known as the greatest and the most origin thinker not only in history of Islamic philosophers but also in history of human thought. His full name was Abu Hamid Muhammad ibn Muhammad al-Tusi al-Shafi'i al-Ghazali, and he is surnamed as Al-Hujjatul Islam for his establishment in knowledge and exclusively called Zawniddin, which means evidence of Islam being truth. He able to master various branches of Islamic religious science and well known for his work that he was assigned as professor at Baghdad for a few years. Eventually, he left his career and was engaged in writing Sufi practices and teaching his discipline until his death on 14 Jamadil Akhir 505 Hijrah at 55 years old in Iran. The timeline of his education. In his first period, he started study Sufism, doctorate on Islam and liberal education. He traveled to Jordan to study jurisprudence of Islam, and he even pursued his study at Nasabur, where he was introduced to theology studies and even composed his first work there. For his second period of studies, where he mastered various fields in knowledge and was well known for his work, he was appointed as a professor in Baghdad for several years and composed few books and gained knowledge. However, for his third period, he experienced internal conflict that he decided to resign and left Baghdad. He underwent taqiyatum nafs and did some self-reflection for several years, where he even traveled to places to seek the truth, which include Mecca, Medina, before he went back to his hometown. During his last period, which can be said the final year of his life, that he started to write Al-Mumkin min al-Dalal, that we'll be focusing on today. He also teaches in theory and practices of the Sufi's life among his students before he passed away. There are a few factors that lead to Imam Al-Ghazali to compose the book, which are spiritual conflicts, and the next one will be his thirst for seeking the true knowledge, and the last one will be the errors in seeking knowledge, where he discovered there are a mix of knowledge that deviate from truth and oppose Islamic teaching. Next, we'll be talking about the definition of knowledge. As we all know, knowledge is one of the main elements in education and being highlighted in the book. The definition of knowledge can be form of facts, information, and other related matters that can obtain through experience or occasion. Additionally, in Islam, true knowledge is certainty, not by uncertainty. The knowledge that being highlighted in the book mainly related to science. Science originally comes from Latin word which meant knowledge, expertness of experience, whereas for modern science defined as an attitude of observation and experimentation with scientific findings and other application in explaining the observations.
Next is the lesson learned from Imam Al-Ghazali in seeking knowledge. The first is proactiveness. If you are proactive, you make things happen instead of waiting for them to happen to you. To make things happen, one needs to make actions. Imam Al-Ghazali ventured into the deep ocean, i.e. the diversity of beliefs and doctrines of the four pathways to solve the problem of knowledge and certitude. Imam Al-Ghazali was indeed a proactive knowledge seeker, as he did not wait for the truth to come to him. Instead, he searched for it, and that is true experience. Experiential learning is learning by doing. There are four phases of experiential learning. The first is concrete experience, which is the action phase where we engage and try out the action directly in the situation. Next is reflective observation phase, whereby we reflect and analyze the result from the action made from multiple perspectives. Abstract conceptualization is the integration phase, where we link and connect the ideas from action and result observed to existing knowledge and understanding. Lastly, active experimentation. This is where we hypothesize and try out what we have learned by making decisions and solving problems. Imam Al-Ghazali believed that only by this method he could fathom the complete knowledge of those four different truth seekers and therefore discovered any branch of knowledge that have erred. The second lesson learned is mujahada. Mujahada comes from the word al-jihad, which means to exert oneself earnestly in the way of Allah. Those who is in the state of mujahada is those who is willingly to live what he likes in order to make great efforts to achieve objectives that are consistent with the religious teachings. Imam Al-Ghazali had sacrificed many things, including his interest in worldly gains, his soul, energy, thought, time, and wealth for the sake to find the truth of certainty, which is ilmul yaqin. As students, we always forget one thing, and that is to refine our niyyah every day, every second, to seek knowledge for the sake of Allah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Next about tabayun. By definition, tabayun means verifying and carefully analyzing incident or news received. The sanctioning of tabayyun is mentioned in Surah Al-Hujurat verse 6. O you who have believed it, if there comes to you a disobedient one with information, investigate, lest you harm a people out of ignorance and become over what you have done regretful. It is important to tabayyun first before spreading the information to others because the false information will not only affect us but also might harm others as well. So this is a statement made by Imam Al-Ghazali during his pursuit of knowledge, where he investigated information and knowledge available. So as a knowledge seeker, we need to verify and investigate knowledge before we came up with a conclusion. We cannot blindly accept the knowledge when it suits our taste. So next is about true versus the true. The true with capital T means the absolute truth. Imam al-Ghazali stressed the importance of genuine Sufism, which he maintained was the path to attain the absolute truth. He also stated in his book, I accepted the self-evidence data of reason and rely on them with safety and certainty, but that was not achieved by constructing a proof or putting together an argument. On the contrary, it was the effect of a light which God Most High cast into my breast, and that light is the key to most knowledge. Everyone knows that there are more things that can be understood by the intellect alone. This is the case in medicine and physics. One who studies either of these soon sees that he needs the help of inspiration and guidance from God the Almighty, and that he cannot gain this knowledge from his own experience. This shows that there are ways of knowing these phenomena in addition to perceiving them with one's own intellect. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, whoever Allah wills to guide, He opens their heart to Islam. But whoever He wills to lead astray, He makes their chest tight and constricted, as if they were climbing up into the sky. This is how Allah dooms those who disbelieve. So, we as humans need guidance from the Almighty God.
Another notable behavior set by Imam Al-Ghazali in seeking for knowledge is the concept of talaki. Talaki is defined as face-to-face and one-to-one learning with a qualified teacher, according to Yusuf and friends. Talaki was first inherited by Rasulullah SAW from Jibril alaihi and then transferred to the companions and applied by Tabi' and Tabi'ins. Talaki is an important means of learning and seeking knowledge as it preserves the authenticity of knowledge and it avoids misunderstanding and misinterpretation. In present days, we more often than not seek knowledge from the internet, such as Google and YouTube. To what extent is that reliable and acceptable? Husnul Dhan is one of the two types of dhan, which refers to suspicion, feeling, or thought that something is possible, likely, or true. Husnul Dhan refers to positive thinking and assumption, in opposed to Su'ul Dhan, which refers to negative suspicion or cautious distrust towards someone who has not been proven wrong. It was narrated by Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, who said that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Allah the Almighty said, I am as my servant thinks I am. If we understand this properly, perhaps the only allowable dhan is husnul dhan towards the Creator. One of the virtues of fadilat of husnul dhan is that it keeps one from making false accusations, known as fitnah, which may make us slanderous in the absence of solid evidence. There is a prohibition of unfounded suspicion or su'ul dhan in the Al-Quran, in Surah Al-Isra, verse 36. And do not follow something you do not know, because hearing, sight, and conscience, all of which will be held accountable. Malik recorded that Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu said that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, beware of suspicion, for suspicion is the worst of false tales.
Imam Al-Ghazali was very wise to choose scholastic theology in his journey to understand the truth seekers group. So, what is the scope discussed in scholastic theologian? Basically, the objective of this group is to preserve the purity of the orthodox belief from all heretical innovation, including the corruption by mankind and shaitan. So, according to Al-Ghazali, it was basic, which is scholastic theology, and people should understand this concept first before pursuing in other knowledge. And the main source of this group are linked to the Quran and As-Sunnah. Al-Ghazali emphasized that scholastic theologian should be learned first because it was a basic and people should understand this concept first. According to Al-Ghazali, he gave an analogy to new student in scholastic theology as unskilled swimmer and the children who want to be a snake charmer. The unskilled swimmer must keep away from slippery riverbank until he can swim, and the children who want to be a snake charmer must handle unvenomous snake first. Ghazali confront with the Batinist group and understand their objective in truth seeking. Basically, their knowledge is derived from their infallible Imam, which, according to them, as the master of the truth, and their Imam book as the source of knowledge. However, Imam al-Ghazali could not find a substance or concrete argument to their views and no force in their argument. And besides, Al-Ghazali also find out that this group is very fanatic to their Imam due to the dim-wittedness of the group to defend the truth by their Imam. Al-Ghazali want to investigate the Ta'limid group is to unveil the bad side of the Ta'limid group because the bad effect of seeking truth and totally rely upon the authority of a leader is very bad, except for the case of Prophet Muhammad, because Allah has confirmed the authority of Prophet Muhammad as the true teaching according to Surah Al-Ma'idah, chapter number 5, verse number 3.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Next, we move on to philosophers. Philosophers are men of logic and apodictic demonstration, which means that they depend on evidence that cannot be denied. So there are several categories of philosophers, three to be exact. So among of the different categories of philosophers, the materialists were the earliest group of philosophers. They are characterized by their denial of the existence of an omnipotent creator. They truly believe that the world, animals, and everything were not created but existed on their own. Moving on to the second category, which are the naturalists. From the name itself, this group of philosophers devote their time to studying the natural world and admiring the marvels that can be found in animals and plants. They acknowledge the existence of a creator through studying nature. Lastly are the theists. So this category was created when Aristotle reorganized the fundamentals of philosophy and refined philosophical sciences. After doing so, Aristotle refuted the other previous philosophical categories, which are materialists and naturalists. Moving on to the divisions of philosophical sciences. The first one is mathematical sciences, which relates to knowledge about arithmetics, geometry, and astronomy. In this division, Al-Ghazali did not detect any stance that they had regarding religious matters. The next division is logical sciences. Logical sciences is the study on the methods to determine the truth, in other words, ways to deduce on a situation. The third division is physical sciences, which is the study of the physical world, such as the planets, stars, water, air, earth, animals, and plants. Another example is study of human anatomy. The fourth division is the metaphysical sciences, which is about understanding reality. For example, such as the purpose of human existence on this earth. But according to Al-Ghazali, this division had the most errors among all the divisions of philosophical sciences. The fifth division is political sciences, which relates to the administrative measures for worldly affairs and the power of the government. All the knowledge in this branch were taken from Allah's divine scripture. And lastly, the moral sciences is the study of the qualities and habits of humans and how to nurture good qualities and how to avoid negative qualities.
So I will talk about Sufism pathway. Basically, Sufi masters have offered numerous varied definitions of Sufism. In order to clarify the nature of Sufism, the following definitions have been chosen. According to Ma'aruf al-Kaki, he defines Sufism as the apprehension of divine realities, while for Al-Junaid, he defines it as the purification of heart from associating with created beings, avoiding temptations of hawa nafsu, improving good quality of one's character, as well as being truly faithful to God and follow the teachings of Prophet Muhammad. For your information, Sufism is one of the branch of Muslim philosophy like other branches in which the main sources is the Quran and Hadith, but the Western scholars have tried to trace Sufism from other sources. For example, Van Cremer and Dozy have traced Sufism from the Christianity, while Nicholson ascribed it to Indian influence of Buddha teaching. The way of the living of Sufis have been appreciated by the companion of Prophet Muhammad. And the following fundamental principles of Sufism are actually found in Islam. The first one is kashaf. which is the extraordinary gift given by Allah to someone that ordinary people do not have. And secondly is God is unique, eternal, and all-pervading. Third one is the world is transitory place. The fourth is God is near to his creatures. Okay, next is the general principle teachings of Sufism. The first one is they believe that the absolute being God is the one with absolute beauty that developed this phenomenal world. Secondly, man should practice virtues such as poverty, humility, fortitude, and discipline. He should devote himself to the way of inwardness like withdrawal, silence, and self-examination. A man should also keep remembrance to God. These virtues actually creates a sense of direct communication with God, according to them. Lastly, a man should have sufficient perseverance to practice all the virtues highlighted to attain the sense of unification with God. The question is why Al-Ghazali actually chose to study Sufism. He perceived this doctrine because Sufism encourages soul purification and intense communication with Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala. What are the perspective of Imam Al-Ghazali on Sufism? Firstly, he practically accepts Sufism after remaining 10 years in that condition. To him, the principle of Sufism emphasizes on the importance of prayers, religious rituals, soul, as well as moral purification, love, and devotion to Allah. Secondly, Imam Al-Ghazali, however, defamed and criticized the principle of unification between man and God because mainly its elements of spirituality were derived from the remote sources and not referable to authentic sources of Quran and As-Sunnah.
Next, move on to Al-Ghazali's opinion on the advantage and disadvantage of these four categories of truth seekers. Firstly, the advantage of scholastic theology is it can preserve the belief of the Sunnis and correcting the falsity designed by the heretics. While, for the cons or disadvantage, people from scholastic theology perform their tasks based on the premise taken from the enemy. They show the weakness point of the enemy that accept the whole premise. However, this debate will bring less benefit for those who only accept things that are logically correct, the Rariyah. Besides, the study has also not reached its own goal. The study of first principle, substance, evidence, and the laws. All of these areas are not the objective of ilm kalam. Instead of preserve the Aqidah, they express the Aqidah or strengthen it. The current issue for scholastic theology is the existence of literalists among the extreme Muslims. Literalists is a group of people that do a narrow interpretation by rejecting the understanding or practice that not interpreted based on the Quran and Hadith. For example, the prohibition of supplication after prayer together with the Imam. Even though this practice was not done during the life of Rasulullah SAW, but this act is good to do and celebrate the custom of a certain place. Because of the prohibition from some of the literalists, it can bring confusions towards the public. This opposes the meaning of ihsan, which attainment of yaqeen in performing the ibadah.
Next is Batinites. It is understood that Batinites emphasize the need for an authoritative teacher who must also be infallible. In Islam, we are also encouraged to do so for understanding the depth of knowledge. However, infallible Imam in Islam is actually Prophet ﷺ as mentioned before. The stand is that Muhammad is no longer alive, so there must be someone after him where they referred as infallible Imam. Imam Al-Ghazali found that this idea is influenced by their intense fanatism towards the Imam until they themselves have been deceived by the false teaching of the Imam. Besides, they also tried to reject their opponent's argument only by lengthy discussion but untenable. This also includes their inability to establish a sound proof of designation of their Imam. They sacrificed their life to look for their Imam, but once they found him, they learned nothing from them. Today, we can see these doctrines being spread among Muslims, including in Malaysia. We can observe them nowadays through few characteristics. First, they believe in the teaching of their Imam, in which has been corrupted by the desire of the Imam. Second, as the term batin is emphasized, their focus is only takwil batin to the point that they deny the meaning of zahir where it reached the extreme level ulu. Lastly, they deny the legal obligations such as praying and fasting, since they assume that they have reached the highest maqam where they are excluded from doing so. This action is unlawful since it denies the pillars of Islam and pillars of Iman as stated in Hadith Jibril. For pillars of Iman, it is cited in Qawaid Muhimmah by Al-Habashi that the 6 pillars as the principle of belief in Islam is definite and should be abided by all mukallaf without exception. Hence, denying one of them is considered similar like denying the deen, leading them to apostasy or murtad.
Next is the philosopher, and as for the proofs, Imam Al-Ghazali does not blindly attack the science of the Greek in the sense that some of the divisions have no relevance to the religion in terms of affirmation or rejection. And for the kunst, Imam Ghazali only rejects the metaphysics that discuss relating to God, uluhiyah. So the science like logic, mathematics, politics, morality, and nature are not related directly to the religion. However, Imam Ghazali has also pointed out the danger for each division. As first thing first is mathematics. He readily admits that there is nothing intrinsically harmful in this division. Nonetheless, it can result in two dangers which greatly affected the belief of many students, which are the first one is a blind conformity. So what Imam Ghazali was trying to point out is that the student who read the mathematical works of Pythagoras, etc., becomes impressed that they followed them blindly even in their non-mathematical idea. Second is inner Muslim. So these are a group of people that realize the danger of studying the sign and they begin to form hatred rather than differentiate between the sign itself and its adherent. So next is the moral philosophy. Imam Ghazali point out the mixture of the moral and philosophic doctrine with the words of Prophet and Sufi can give rise to two dangers, which are to the upholder and to the opponent of this doctrine. So in this regard, Imam Ghazali reminds that accepting their sign was not necessarily to accept all their argument. While in metaphysics, Imam Ghazali has pointed out 3 problems subject to disbelieving, which are the eternity of the world, denial of the God knowledge, and the resurrection of the body. So according to Imam Ghazali, those philosophers who hold these 3 problems become infidel because they disbelieve in prophetic information. In general, Imam Ghazali criticized philosophers as their arguments are related to the intellect and the relation. This group of the people that really exists nowadays, whereby it is a group that trapped in a great logical and philosophical thought, and they try to adapt Quran to the philosophical teaching. They are also known as the Mu'tazila. So they reject many questions, certain Aqidah and the laws of the Sharia that are not aligned or contradictory to their logic. Hence, due to this error and the faultiness of this path, Imam Ghazali has been led to reject this philosophic system.
The thing that needs to be highlighted is Sufism is consummated only by theoretical knowledge and by activity, and the most distinctive characteristic of Sufism is something that can be attained not only by study but rather by fruitional experience. And for example, there is a difference between you knowing the true nature and condition of asceticism from actually practicing it. Next, the necessity of practicing Sufism was the true nature and special character of prophecy. And according to Imam Al-Ghazali, beyond the sense of intellect, which is akal, there is another stage from which man will be given an eye to the undisclosed world and what will be taken place in the future and other things. And in this stage, they may know other things outside their intellectual capacity. Imam Al-Ghazali pointed out the reason for man's weakness of faith is stemming from those who are absorbed with the way of Sufism, and one of the men claims to be an expert in the science of Sufism and was above the need to do formal worship such as prayers and doing zakah, and another man provide doubt of as accusers of al-ibahah, and there are those who stray from the path of Sufism. Currently, many followers of Sufi allege that the current teaching of Sufi is no longer focusing on the purification of soul, but to glorify the teacher or sheikh. So there are many weird philosophies of science of Sufism that visualize the power of their spiritual teacher. So the things that need to be taught are to glorify the only one God, but the teachers take an advantage to get some recognition and name. Just that the late Sufi adherents are dramatically different from their predecessors, as they practice many religious innovations and deviated from the correct path. For example, they introduced some practices like worshipping Allah through dancing and jumping while reciting zikr. All of these are considered deniable religious innovation according to the consensus of Muslims.
In conclusion, there are a few take-home messages that we can learn from this case. First up is we must practice ikramul muslimin, which is to be kind towards other people and not cause hardship. We must also not be too quick to judge other people for their beliefs and their different practices. Also, we can practice al-ilm and al-fahmu in seeking truth. Seeking truth must be in line with our aqidah. There's a quote by Sayyidina Ali in the article which states that do not seek for the truth by means of men, find first the truth and then you will recognize those who follow it. So lastly, our stand for this case is that Al-Ghazali is a prime role model. He must be followed in terms of seeking truth and knowledge. Seeking knowledge is not as simple as it seems. We must criticize and question everything that we learn and not just accept knowledge blindly. Thirdly is that we must seek truth that is in line with our Aqidah. Our Aqidah comes first, and always keep in mind of our intentions in learning. That is all. Thank you very much.
Lastly, to close our case study for the semester, we would like to give special credit and special gratitude to our lecturer and our teacher, Assistant Professor Dr. Munirah Shaban, for continuous guidance and for supporting us in doing our case studies. May Allah bless you and grant you the best rewards for all your kindness. And not to forget all of my teammates Adib, Arif, Faris, Nur, Harith, Ain Ilmiah, Izzah, Alia, Farahana, Zahirah and Sakinah. Thank you for all the cooperation and efforts in learning the cases. And not to forget my classmates that have triggered many interesting discussions throughout this case study. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum.